Hey folks, Dave Ashenbrenner here. This will be part 3 installment of the metalworking masterclass that we're doing. And it goes beyond just working with the metal, but it goes into the fiberglass hammer forms that we're going to make. We're actually going to do a masterclass on fiberglassing. So for any reason, if you want to do any kind of fiberglassing with polyester resin and fiberglass mat, this will be a great class for you. So stick around. I'll answer any questions also after the end of this class. Just put a question in. I answer all of my comments. So make sure you follow along with this. And if you have any questions later on, I'll be glad to answer them. We'll get into the materials used on this and the technique. Everybody kind of has their own technique. They call it their black magic, but this is how I learned it. I learned it from reading books. I'll leave those in the description below. The book that I followed as I was learning, and I had a gentleman that helped me learn how to roll out fiberglass mat, which is really the importance of this next part here. The preparation is the most important part of it. Having all the materials ready before you catalyze the polyester resin. Just make sure everything you have is within safe reach, and wear all your safety equipment, including safety goggles or glasses, special rubber gloves, a little thicker than your normal examination gloves. And you'll want to make sure that you have a bunch of acetone around, which will dilute any, if you get any of this polyester resin on you, you'll be able to wipe it off and clean your rollers immediately before the stuff hardens up. You're going to be working against time with this, so I'll explain it as much as I can while we're going through it, but I'll be wearing a mask. So make sure that you're paying attention to this, and if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer it. So let's get started. I was right in the midst of editing that video, our part 3 for this, and I thought I'd come on and just say this is going to be another 2-parter. We're going to do the first half of that video today, which will be the fiberglass preparation, and we're going to save the layup for the next session. The reason for this is these are very long videos, and I want to break them up, and I've taken out some of the slack out of them, quiet times, but every step in this next process is very important. And you can go on YouTube or wherever, and you can get instructions from somebody on how to make a fiberglass part or a fiberglass mold, but this is very specific to the art pieces that I've done and the gas tanks that I've done. So if you want the information on how to just fiberglass something, there's information out there for it, but this is very specific. The other thing I wanted to say was save these videos. You may not want to do this now, but if the urge comes in a year, or if you finally get a place to do it, you've been thinking about it, and you want to make something like this out of aluminum, you want to pound metal, save these. I don't know what's going to happen to these videos. Put these in your saved videos on your phone, camera, computer, whatever. Let's get into this thing. So you're going to see a kind of a messy shop behind me. It's a working shop. There's people running around there all the time. So they've tried to keep the interruptions low, but you're going to hear some interruptions in the background. But we're actually going to do a video on the shop too. I'll have you meet Dennis, the shop owner, and we'll show you what he does. It'll be another interesting video for you, but with no further ado. Hey folks, Dave Ashenbrenner. Hey, it's going to get a little noisy out here. I'm in my friend's shop, and I do have a remote mic here to help us go through this. But I wanted to explain step by step how we prepare the actual, I'm going to call it a mold or tool. Generally, this would be a mold for making fiberglass parts. This is kind of how they make it, with a few extra caveats in it. So what we want to do is we want just half of it. So we put a flange on here. We make this, doesn't have to be airtight, but it's going to be a small radius on there so that when you bring the metal down across to the inside of the tool, you don't kink it on a hard surface. It's able to draw some of that metal over that rounded surface. So I'll try to explain this as we go along. Today, I'm not going to be wearing a mask. This is going to be a 2-day ordeal because we've got a lot of chemicals drying on here. It's a hot day in Florida, so I'm going to try to get through this thing. Got some fans running in the background. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clay around all of these little ridges here. What you end up with is what this looks like when you're finished. So if you want to, you don't care about big slops in it or anything like that, just go for it. But we're going to make this thing as perfect as we can. These tools are made to last a lifetime. And if you make it correctly, you'll make a lot of pieces off of this, thus a lot of profit. I'm doing this to pass this method on to anybody who wants to pick this up and make a business out of it or even a hobby out of it. But these are the fundamental things that you have to do to make these things good. So we're going to start by rolling a bead of clay and sticking it in here, claying off all these things that are sticking up that aren't perfect to the surface of this right now. So I'm going to go away for a little while. I'm going to prepare my clay. Okay, so next step is to clay all of the cracks, all of the uneven surfaces. Then we're going to take a putty knife to apply it, and then we're going to smooth it off with one of these Bondo spreaders. Get a nice flat surface on it. And this is for the radius that we're going to put in here. This will give us the correct radius. It's about the size of a dime or a 1/2 inch in diameter right here. We're going to make a nice little even radius all the way along that top edge. Once again, that's for the metal that's going to come from the flange, and it's going to draw over the top of that part. Well, these are very important things I'm telling you, so keep this video, watch this if you're ever confused about it. This is the clay that we use. I think it's called plasticine is the general name for it, and it's a oil-based clay, and it never dries. So this is the stuff you want. You don't want the air-dry clay, earthen clay, anything like that. This has to be what you use right here. Be careful, some chemicals will react to this clay, so always check whatever chemical you're working with, whatever plastic or whatever you're working with, make sure that it's compatible with this kind of clay. I'll get you a closer shot of that right there. I got this off Amazon, it's relatively cheap. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna roll it out. I'm gonna take some pieces of it and roll it into a thin strip, maybe a 1/2 inch in diameter, maybe 3/8 of an inch is better. We're gonna go along this edge with it. Right here, I'm gonna lay it in and basically stuff it in, get it in there, maybe swipe it with my finger before we take that nice little wire clay tool to it. Let's unpack this stuff. And it comes scored in, this is like 4 bars. We're just gonna take a bar off of it. A small enough piece to work with easily. And you'll want to, this works best on a warm day. Believe it or not, this is a perfect day for this. So we're going to start out with this. It's about 1/4 of the bar, let's call it. And I'm going to cut this in half. It's got a lot of scores in it. All right. And we just roll it. We roll it out wide. We bring it together to thicken it up a little bit. We're going to apply this to the tank. So let's make a couple of these right away. All right. So here's our 2 pieces. Okay. Let's start right at the tip. Work our way all the way back. Just lay it up against there. I like to start out with just sticking one end of it to it. This will give us a scope of basically how big our bead is going to be. And as we work it, we can stretch it out a little bit to get the right amount of clay on there. So we're just pushing it in. I'm going to make sure it goes down into that crack. That's what's going to keep, and you can shift the clay over one way or the other while you're pushing it in to get that right amount of clay on there. This one we can pull out just a little bit. We can stretch these. And you can see what we're doing here. And then I'm going to pull this along to smooth it off. Get our little first grade of smoothness here. Tells me that we need to keep pushing it into that direction. It doesn't seem like there's quite a bit enough clay there to get what we're trying to get. So we're not going to rush this job. It'll bite us later. If you have to come back, you can add clay to it. However, it's best right now to do as much of that as possible. This is a nice melamine two-sided laminate 5/8 inch particle board right here. You can do this with 1/4 inch plywood. You can do it with real hard cardboard. It's nice to have a couple woodworking tools when you're doing this. I'm going to start at the bottom this time. Now we're going all the way down to the bottom of the tank, even though there's an opening in the back here that's been clayed up. So, all right, we just break it off here. We got a little extra. That's not a big deal. The clay tool will take that off. All right, so now what I'm trying to do now is all these edges right here where you can see a little, we're going to push that down, get a good seal on both sides. Doesn't have to be real elaborate. There we go, like so. Do our initial little smooth off like this. You also get a feeling for the speed bumps in there. Able to mow those down a little. I wish I could show you all that stuff. I don't have metal. I don't have a lot of my metalworking tools, but what we're doing here today is we're doing shop work to make the tool itself. There may be a time when we're able to strike to metal, but that's not in the near plans. So this is valuable information if you're fiberglassing things. And I'll show you in the video. Actually, I'm going to do this in the beginning of the video, so it'll probably already have been done. Some of the artwork pieces that I made. So if you're into doing metal work, this will work for all of that stuff. It's a good example for the gas tank. That's how we started this program, by doing the gas tank. And there's a couple little spots in the back here that I got to cover up. And the wood, I got a little plug of wood in here. I'm just going to smear some of this on top of it to smooth it off. Okay. All right. The rest of that's putz work. And you want to get this front here. There's a little transition, a little crack where the wood meets the fiberglass tank. We're going to do this. All right, acetone. This is your friend right here. Whenever you're doing anything with polyester resin, you always want to have this stuff around. We're going to clean that little spot on there. By the way, acetone is not bad for your skin. Your body actually puts acetone out. I went through this whole thing with chemicals when I first started doing this, which ones to avoid, which ones don't harm you. So this doesn't hurt to breathe. Well, you don't want to inhale it, like huff it, but it's relatively safe. Let's put it that way. That's what we've taken off of it right there. We've also probably wouldn't hurt See all the gunk we got off that. And let's try this again. Much better. All right, we want to keep it above the surface. Oh, that's much better. All right, let's push that down. Okay, the way you want to attack this is not do it a whole bunch of times. You want to get it in as few strokes as possible. Whenever you run something across that clay, it's going to drag it and try to pull it out. So we're going to be real careful. Let's go back on our board. I'm going to use this little 1.5-inch putty knife. The more flexible, the better on these knives. Work it toward the outside. We're pushing it into that little divot that's in there. All right, well, my shop guy here, Dennis, who you'll meet tomorrow, just gave me some of this. Now, I kept this in my shop also. I wasn't aware that he had this here. This is a special wax right here. It's compatible with the next thing that we're going to spray on here. You got to be careful. It's not just wax. So this is called Pardal Paste 2. Very famous stuff. Okay, this you can't buy it at, I don't think, at any local. You have to order this through a special distributor, I believe. If you have any questions about it, I can try to get that information for you. So we're just going to rub this over the top. That'll make everything smooth. Woo! Yes, it does. We don't need a lot. It's to keep the friction off your finger when you're dragging that clay out. Matter of fact, get a little of that off there. Now we can really do a nice edge on there. We're also going to hit this with it. So just a little coating on my finger. We're just trying to, we're not applying wax. We're keeping our finger from sticking to that clay. Oh yeah. Boy, does that do a nice job. That's perfect. I'm going to make it more perfect. This is where you screw up. Oh yeah. There we go. Now, you don't necessarily have to wipe it off. It's going to dry to a crusty film. When we're done, do this front part. And this actually dissolves a little bit into the top layer of the clay. Let me just try something out here. My better judgment tells me not to do this. But the showy off side of me says, go ahead and do it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We even took a little bit of clay film off of there. Let me go around it again. You got to do this as a real smooth stroke. If you slow down and speed up, it'll make little chatter marks in it. So I think we're as close as we're ever going to get. So I'm just going to leave this. And this has got clay in it, so it's no good anymore. Don't tell anybody I did that. All right, so we got that clean. Keep your tools nice and clean. It's a clean machine, very clean. All right, okay. Next step, we're gonna put a radius on this bottom right here. I'll probably end up taking Bondo and putting just a little 1/2 inch wide bead on it, and we're gonna sand on it, and then put the clay. If it's not uniform, we'll put some clay on it. If it is, we'll put some wax on it. Then we're ready for coating the PVA, which is polyvinyl alcohol. And what that'll do is it'll put a protective skin on this. We'll need to put many very thin layers because it's water based, and alcohol. The alcohol helps it uh, gas off as quick as possible, but it's probably a 2 hour long process doing that. I'll put a couple coats on for you. I won't belabor that with you. We're going to come back tomorrow and it'll be prepped and ready for us to gel coat it, and we'll just go from there. So, okay. So Dennis helped me. This is Dennis's shop. Dennis helped me figure out a way that we can get along the bottom here. We need a radius, just like we do on the top, going up to the flange. We need the same thing going down to the flange, an external radius or a convex radius. So here's what we came up with, Dennis's idea. And we're going to glue this to the bottom of the tank after we make a radius on here. We're going to go ahead and make our same basic radius we did across the top. Probably run this through a router so we can make a real nice radius on it here. So I just wanted to stop the production and just let you guys know what the next step would be on something like this. So you can't rush through any of this stuff. You got to think everything out and make sure it's going to make the part that you want it to make when you're done. Now, this part we're going to radius it. The beginning of the radius is going to be right here at the crack where the bottom of this tank is here. What that's going to do for us, if we want to make a metal piece for this, that's going to give us a little mark of where the metal has to bend over. We can either use a flanging tool, one of those Pexto rollers with a flanging tool in it, or we can just put a dolly behind it, put a line up across the top of it, put your dolly underneath it, and you'll get a feel for where the dolly is, where it's denting the metal, and you just slowly go back and forth until you get that edge folded over down there. That's part of the making the tank. You never want to get this kind of joint and try to weld on this joint like this. That's the hardest. If you can, you always want to butt weld it. So the side of the tank comes down, curls over, you get a butt weld on it like that. That's what we're attempting to do with this right here. Done this many times, been a few years, and this is a special little thing here. We're going to also take a piece of this. This is, let's see, this would be called medium density fiber board. It's like pressed sawdust with glue and pressure, heat and pressure. And we're going to take some of this and we're going to score it with the table saw, and I'll show you the piece, and we're going to make it so that it bends around this corner. We're going to hot glue it. We're going to hot glue it to this right here. So let's get this shape first, and then we'll get it glued into place. We'll use a little bit of clay on it to make everything smooth and uniform, and then we'll be ready to start spraying our mold release on here. So very important things. All right, here's what we did for doing a little compound curve here. And this is along the bottom. I mentioned this earlier. This was our solution. We're taking this lath and kind of with a sander, belt sander. We're going around and we're just kind of helping curve those edges around. Once it's glued in, we'll take a sanding block and we'll more uniformly make the curve around those. The importance of that is that when you're laying fiberglass mat, it doesn't want to go around a sharp corner. So we're just giving it a little relief now. This is Dennis, our shop guy here. And he's helping me come up with these great solutions. And later on, I'll introduce you to him. And we're going to take a tour of his shop. He makes some very interesting stuff here. He's sort of an inventor. All right, so that's how far we are now. When this is all done, we'll have it sanded. I'll probably put some clay on there, right along this edge, maybe a little bit of clay, and then we'll use that #2 wax again on it, just before we put the PVA, polyvinyl alcohol, which is the barrier that's going to keep the fiberglass from sticking to our mold here. Okay, let me show you what we did over here. This is, we did a little bit of Bondo on here, spot putty on here. And this is the gap between the piece of wood that we put across the bottom. Fiberglass is going to come over this edge. Fiberglass cannot butt up against a straight edge and curl around like that. You have a hell of a time doing it. So you give it a little bit of, on all the convex corners, you give it a little bit of relief. Now, anything that's going in, you got an innie on here, you have the opportunity to sand it. The mold, when you take it off, that's gel coat you're going to be pulling off there, and you can sand that off. Anything that comes out of your mold, you can't sand it out. You have to sand around it to bring it to that same level. So be cognizant of that. So anything that goes in, the other thing is you can lock your part onto your mold by having what they call a reverse draft on it. When the tank comes down and it returns, if it returns in, you're going to have a hell of a time pulling that off, and it's very unforgiving. Fiberglass is, you're going to stretch it and flex it. It's going to be there. So it'll be married to the rest of this mold here. So you want to be real careful when you're doing this. Heads up. All right. So I showed you this stuff yesterday. This is that part all paste #2. We're actually painting this on to all of the wood, anything that's porous, attaching this mold to the tank. We're going along here. All of this is that medium density fiberboard. There's a 2x4 that's holding it here. We're just going to paint this on, and then we're going to buff it off. This is wax. We're going to let it soak in. And 2x4, I'm not too worried about the 2x4. It'll probably soak in anyway. All the hardware coming along here. Any of this stuff isn't going to be in the mold at all, but we're just making sure any little drips that come off the mold when we're glassing it don't lock this on to the base. So we're getting that base nice and juiced up. Every little spot where it can drip in. You can't see this here, but it's pretty complicated. Flash up. Make sure we get all the boards. This I'm not too worried about. So we're going to let that set up a little bit, and then we're just going to take a rag and buff it off. I'm talking to the camera here. Okay, so we're just real lightly buffing this off. Taking off all the brush strokes from here. This is compatible with the next step we're going to put on there. So we really don't have to worry about it putting on too much. All right. All right. Close enough. Okay, this is what they call chopped mat. It's basically in a factory. It's on a conveyor belt that's rolling past, and the chopper gun is spraying this on, and they mix some sort of starch with it that when the mat is put on and you apply your polyester resin to it, you see it's oriented all different directions here. And when you put your polyester resin on it, it actually melts that starch or releases that starch, which helps it conform to convoluted surfaces. So that's it. We're going to be using this stuff right here. All right, Dennis is going to put on coat number 2, PVA. Conditioning his nozzle. Here we go. He's putting it on a little thicker this time. This is what they call a wet coat, semi-wet coat. And what you're going to see is that you're going to see a little shine to it. That's why they call it a wet coat.
Yeah, so we do the dust first so it doesn't fisheye on the wax.
Right. Yep. The first coat was what we call a dry coat or a dust coat. And that keeps the PVA has a tendency to fisheye. That's where any oil or wax on the surface will make the liquid spread out in a few spots. They call them fisheyes. So painters know what a fisheye is. They put fisheye remover in their paint, actually. But you can see the sheen on it now. You see that little shine coming off of it. So the next coat he puts on is going to be another wet coat. You get a little more aggressive with each coat. Then we got to let that thoroughly dry. What happens is when you put the wet coat on, it infuses the layer that you're spraying on with the layer underneath. So that basically soaks in to the layer that you've already put on, which makes it like one layer, one piece. Okay, as you can see, we now have our third and final coat of this on. This has to be spray applied. There is really no way around that. If you can't brush it on, really, you'll leave streaks and everything in it. This is the surface of what your mold is going to turn out like right here. So we got this all sprayed up, all waxed up. We talked about fish eyes before. Here's fish eyes right here. This is where they sprayed silicone in the other room into the molds, and that little bit that's in the air, that mist of that silicone is what caused this. So you want to be real careful. You don't touch your mold, handle it. If there's any silicone around, any oil or silicone, you don't want that in your part here. So be cognizant. If you stick your fingers in it and you touch your mold, you're going to have fish eyes. So this is it. You see the green color kind of gives it away how thick it is on here. Okay. We're going to go ahead and gel coat this. Now, gel coat is normally applied with a spray gun. It's just they call it a dump gun. It's got an open nozzle and air just kind of spits through it, and it puts a coating. It doesn't have to be like a automotive finish type gun. It's just to lay a layer of the gel coat on here. We're going to brush that on. The purpose of these videos is you can do this you don't need a fancy shop. You don't need the fancy equipment. We've got it here. We could use it and show you how it's done professionally. I'm going to do it with a brush. This is what you're faced with right here. So we're going to go ahead. I'll get that prepared. This is the gel coat right here. It's a tooling gel, and we are going to add the catalyst to it. There's a certain amount of catalyst, percentage of catalyst you add to this. I believe it's 2%, 1.5%, somewhere in there that we add to this. So we're calculating this as 3/4 of a quart. This is a 1 quart deli cup. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mix that up, and then I'll start applying it, and we're going to turn the camera back on. Okay, we are ready to we're ready to paint on our tooling gel.